Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. Last year I listened to 124 albums, 77 of which were actually released last year. That was a lot of music, and when trying to create an album of the year list, I had a tough time narrowing it down to just 10. And then I'd still need to rank those 10, so I decided to do things differently than most album of the year videos or lists or whatever. If you recall last year, I kind of unintentionally split it into three parts: 7 albums I enjoyed, some honorable mentions, and my top 3. I've decided to expand on this concept since I don't rate albums in a traditional sense, and I enjoy a lot of different music for a variety of reasons. So I'll be splitting up the albums in this video into 4 categories: eternal spins, the albums that I listen to over and over and over and over again; beautiful soundscapes, which were albums with phenomenal composition; heavy art, albums that blew me away but I'd probably never want to listen to again; and fun rides, albums that I enjoyed and want to showcase but didn't really blow me away. These would have been like 7 or 8s. Really good stuff, but not the greats. Additionally, I'm not aiming to stick with a top 10 either. I ended up landing on 14 albums, and I really couldn't remove any more, so that's what we're going with, a top 14. That's normal, right? With that said, let's get into the list so this doesn't turn into a 30-minute video. Start with fun rides. That sound good? Alright. With all the lists, this one included, we're going to be looking at albums alphabetically. So they're not going to be in any sort of ranked order. I figure this is just a good way to list it. And so we're going to start with Dir En Grey at D. They were a really neat find years ago when y'all introduced me to Venushka. I enjoyed that track so much, I went out and grabbed the Ouroboros album. I haven't checked out anything else since though, and I figured since they have a new album coming out, it's a good time to revisit them. And boy, I wasn't wrong. Phalaris is a great album that reminds me of a more matured Ouroboros. This album is all over the place with ballads, atmospheric slow burns, driving metal, new metal, and just a bunch of other stuff, honestly. The band is like a chameleon and always surprise me with what they have up their sleeves next. I Speak is a band that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but was surprised by. I had first heard them during a live stream and was enamored by the way they had mixed pop, electronic, rock, and metal with a general antagonistic and haunting vibe. I went into the album thinking the novelty might wear off before I hit the end, but was surprised to find myself engaged throughout. I'd wager a lot of that is due to the short runtime of each track and the sheer variety found between songs, especially in the vocals, which can bounce between poppy vocals, growls, aggressive rock vocals, and operatic vocals. This sample I'm about to play isn't indicative of their composition style, but I wanted to show off as many aspects as I could, so if you decide to give them a shot, just know that most songs have a unified sound rather than this concept of jumping around between a bunch of things quickly. When I was looking through my notes, I saw a band called Morphide with the description reminds me of Cloud Factory era Ginger. And while I don't feel that's 100% accurate now as I did then for the entire album, there are certainly points of songs where it's a perfect description. The other side of the album is comprised of beautiful poppy sections with driving bass lines and funky drum patterns. We'll wrap up this section with We Are Many, We Are Legion, or Wham Wall, as I'll be referring to them from here on out. This was a late addition to the list as I only found out about them in October through the Creator Request program. This band is a ton of fun, firmly sitting in the nu metal area, but with a full horn section and a great mix of clean and harsh vocals. They occasionally have more serious sections, but there's an equal amount of fun parts on the album as well. Moving into beautiful sound, we'll start with Amanda Whitting's Lost in Abstraction, a beautiful jazz album that rests closer to the easy listening side of the spectrum. Most of the songs are comprised of a rhythm section and a lead melody instrument. The bass and drums sound great on every track, and the lead melodies, including the solo sections, are beautifully serene. There are a couple of tracks that play around with spice, such as Lost, but most of the album is focused on consonant beauty. Up next is Christodoulou's soundtrack to the video game Risk of Rain 2, specifically the expansion pack titled Survivors of the Void that came out last year. I did a reaction to one track off of this, titled Face of the Deep. This was easily my second most played video game last year, so I spent a lot of time listening to Chris's work even when I wasn't listening to the album. While there are some tracks that carry momentum, like the aforementioned Face of the Deep, most of the album is about groovy, moody, electronic atmospheres. Next up is Faye Webster's Car Therapy Session. Rate Your Music has this listed as Baroque pop, and that's quite a sufficient description of it. I don't really need much of an explanation here. Take pop vocals and put them over that whimsical classic Disney sound, and you'll get this album.
Ask what you want, ask what you need. I'll tell you everything that I know. I'm hoping that you won't ever leave, 'cause there's nowhere else I wanna go. And it's not like how you make me feel. I don't feel this kind of type of way.
Pathos Trio were an interesting find last year. When researching the band Painted in Exile, I discovered that many members moved on to other projects that I enjoyed, such as the drummer playing for Monochromatic Black. The original keyboardist for Painted in Exile, Alan Hankers, helped create Pathos Trio, a percussion trio playing avant-garde adjacent music. It's difficult to explain their music in a condensed form, but they play around with atmosphere, time, sounds, silence, and pretty much every aspect of music. It's a bit esoteric and a difficult first listen, but something about it stuck with me. Their music also doesn't work well with a quick 30-second snippet, so if you're even mildly intrigued by what you're about to hear, I suggest giving them at least a full track of your time. The final band for the Beautiful Soundscapes category is the Family Crest, who had been a long anticipated band for me to dive into after I had been introduced to their track Beneath the Brine during a live stream. Earlier this year, I decided to check out their double album, The War, Acts 1 and 2, where Act 2 was released last year. This group does a fantastic job of layering up both atmospheric and melodic ideas into these emotionally engaging moments in tracks that are brilliantly led into. The overall ebb and flow of the album is masterfully controlled. And not to discredit the rest of the band and their contributions, but the vocalist here has some chops. And now we head into the heavy art category. Kicking this off is Ashenspire with the album Hostile Architecture. This is filled with abrasive sounds, avant-garde noises, and aggressive spoken word. This sits in the same realm as bands like Capra and Christodoulou, where I don't like the music, but it's the perfect vehicle to deliver their message. The lyrics are meticulously written and passionately delivered, speaking towards the failings of a modern society. The album is not easy to listen to, it's loud and noisy, but the themes of the album aren't easy to listen to either. These people are mad, They're furious at the state of things, and sometimes screaming is the only way to get that frustration out and be heard.
The scowling holding the bread from their mouths as it rouses the worker to sell themselves short, both foundation and cornerstone, and entirely bereft of support. If I drink college reagents, will I finally shine inside? Or will I see myself as God sees me? If I pour it in my eyes, pour it in my eyes! Hold silent but for the rain. Weary lungs, asthmatic brain.
Senses Fail was a name I recognized from my teen days. This is the first full album I've heard from them, but I've been aware of them for quite some time and probably heard a single or two over the years. They're listed as pop rock, post-hardcore, and emo, so this should have easily been an album I enjoyed and got stuck in my head. Instead, I ran into familiar musical sounds, but paired with hard-hitting themes. Lyrically, it's an album about dealing with trauma, navigating deaths in the family, dealing with mental health, and wondering how someone who isn't perfect could be a parent. There are a lot of topics here that hit close to home for me, hidden underneath the comforts of my go-to genre.
Today's the anniversary of the day that you should have been born. Nobody ever taught me healthy habits or how to mourn. Standing by the ocean, now you're waiting with your ashes scattering. I'm throwing salt into the sea. The burden of your death like a boulder on my chest, a blanket keeping me. Just warming up to stay alive and still suffering. Emptiness is all I can feel. There's nothing in this world that
And now, if you've been counting, you'll notice there are 3 more. And they just all happen to be in the Eternal Spins category. I didn't plan to make a top 3, and I don't want these to be counted as a top 3, but these were the 3 I enjoyed the most. So I guess that kind of qualifies. Don't read into that, please. These were the 3 albums I couldn't stop listening to in 2022. First up is Demi Lovato's Holy Fuck. This is probably the album I listened to the most times last year. It's a wonderful trip through a lot of popular rock sounds over the last decade, being paired with the peak production that you would expect from pop music. You'll find emo, pop rock, pop punk, industrial, that modern rock sound with the electronic stuff in the background, ballads, anthems, everything in between. It seems to be a cathartic album for Demi, but I didn't quite connect with a lot of the lyrical themes, which seem to be about her journey escaping the corporate control of her art. Despite this, the music is infectious and catchy enough that it consistently got stuck in my head. The sample I'm about to play is from a track called Eat Me, which isn't indicative of the whole album. As I mentioned, it's kind of all over the place, but it does represent a handful of the heavier tracks, and you know what? It's easily my favorite one on the album, so I'm highlighting it anyways.
You wanna make the impossible possible. Is this what you'd all prefer? Would you like me better if I was still her? Did she make your mouths water? I know the part I played before. I know the shit that I've ignored. I know the girl that you adored. She's dead, it's time to fucking mourn. I can't speak you anymore. I can't speak
Next up is Gaupa, which would have been my most played album if it had been released earlier in the year. I had heard a track from their previous album during a live stream, and when I saw their name in the release list for November, I knew I had to check them out. I've consistently described them as a Bjork-led rock band, and I love their knack for crafting palpable atmospheres alongside addictive grooves. And our final album for this list is Greyhaven's The Bright and Beautiful World. This album bounces between two extremes and pulls them off with such swiftness and ease. They'll often jump between something you'd easily find on the radio and then flip a switch and engage with a noisier take more akin to the Dillinger Escape Plan. They remind me a lot of Oh Sleeper, which is a band I've had a difficult time finding something similar to that actually works for me. So this was an excellent find. And those are my favorite albums from 2022. This is not exhaustive. I did cut out quite a few albums that I greatly enjoyed, but didn't think it made the cut for the top of the top. The cream of the crop. Did I got another rhyme for OP? I don't know. This is where y'all come in though. Let me know what your favorite albums were of last year. Let me know if you enjoyed any of these or if there's any songs here that got you interested and now you're going to check out the album. Also, get amped up for Monday, which is going to be titled Best of 2022, where we're going to look at a few tracks that are your favorites of the year. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.